My beloved child, pause here for a moment. Do not rush past these words, because what you are about to hear was not placed before you by accident. Something has been moving quietly beyond what your eyes can see, and the person your heart has tried so hard to release may be finding their way back toward your life. But before you allow hope to rise too quickly, before you imagine the reunion, before you begin rebuilding every dream you once buried, there is something important you must know. Your soul has already felt the change. That is why certain memories have returned without warning. That is why their name may have crossed your mind during the quietest hours. That is why a familiar emotion has been stirring in your chest, even when nothing around you seemed different. You may have wondered why the past suddenly feels close again. You may have questioned whether you were simply remembering what once was, or whether something deeper was taking place. Listen carefully. Not every memory is an invitation to return, but some memories appear because a closed chapter is being touched again. Some people revisit your spirit before they revisit your life. Their energy arrives first. Their regret becomes restless. Their silence grows heavy. The words they refuse to speak begin pressing against their heart until they can no longer pretend that losing you did not change them. Your soulmate may be experiencing that very awakening now. For a long time, they tried to convince themselves that distance was easier. They told themselves that time would quiet what they felt. They believed that if they stayed busy enough, distracted enough, surrounded by enough noise, they would eventually stop wondering about you. But what they did not understand was that a meaningful connection cannot always be erased by avoidance. Sometimes distance does not destroy love. Sometimes it reveals the weight of it. And now, the silence they once used as protection has begun to feel like punishment. There have been moments when they almost reached out. Moments when they opened a message and closed it. Moments when they imagined your response and became afraid of what they might find. They wondered whether you had forgotten them. They wondered whether someone else had discovered the tenderness they failed to protect. They wondered whether the door they walked away from was still standing open. Or whether their hesitation had finally caused it to close. But this is where the truth becomes more serious. Their possible return is not the entire message. Heaven is not showing you this merely so you can celebrate the idea of being chosen again. You are being prepared because their return may carry both an opportunity and a test. The same person can return with real feelings and still be carrying unfinished fears. They can miss you deeply and still not fully understand how to love you correctly. They can regret leaving and still be learning how to stay. Do not skip this part, because it may protect your heart from repeating an old cycle. Your soulmate's emotions may be sincere. Their longing may be real. Their regret may be deeper than you know. But emotion alone is not transformation. Missing you is not the same as being ready for you. Wanting another chance is not the same as having learned what to do with it. This is the important truth you must hold close. When they return, do not listen only to what they say. Listen to the life behind their words. Watch what has changed in the way they communicate, the way they take responsibility, the way they respond when things become uncomfortable. A person who has truly grown will not only speak about love, they will create safety around it. They will not demand immediate access to your heart. They will respect the healing that happened while they were gone. You have changed too. There was a version of you who would have accepted almost anything just to keep this connection alive. That version of you waited for small signs and called them promises. That version of you turned confusion into hope and silence into excuses. You tried to understand their fears, their wounds, their timing, and their distance. You gave patience because your heart was sincere. But somewhere along the journey, you became tired of carrying a connection alone. You began learning that love should not require you to disappear. You began understanding that loyalty does not mean accepting uncertainty forever. You began realizing that your heart could remain soft without remaining unprotected. That growth matters now. Because when someone from your past returns, they often expect to meet the same person they left behind. They may remember your kindness but forget the boundaries your pain created. They may remember how quickly you forgave but not understand how deeply you had to rebuild yourself after they walked away. Your soulmate may soon discover that you are still loving, but you are no longer easy to confuse. This will surprise them. They may come toward you believing the greatest challenge will be finding the courage to speak. But the real challenge will be proving that their return is not another temporary wave of emotion. They may have rehearsed an apology. They may have imagined telling you that they never stopped caring. They may even be preparing to reveal something they hid from you before. Yet heaven is whispering, do not be moved by intensity alone. Some returns begin with powerful words because the returning person is overwhelmed by loss. They feel the emptiness you left behind. They suddenly recognize your value. They become emotional, urgent, and afraid. But urgency can fade when comfort returns. This is why you must look for consistency after the confession. Will they remain honest when the conversation becomes difficult? Will they stay present when fear returns? Will they choose you publicly and privately? Will their actions continue after they know they have your attention? These questions are not signs of bitterness. They are signs of wisdom. You are not being told to close your heart. You are being told to open your eyes. Something extraordinary may indeed be unfolding. The person who once ran from the depth of this connection may now be turning back toward it. But they are not returning because everything became easier without you. They are returning because something in their life exposed what your presence truly meant. They have seen what the world feels like without your energy. They have spoken to people who did not understand them the way you did. They have stood in rooms full of voices and still felt emotionally alone. They have tried to replace the comfort of your presence with distractions, but nothing carried the same peace. They may not have admitted this to anyone, but deep inside, they began comparing every new experience to the connection they had with you. And the comparison kept bringing them back to one painful realization. You were not ordinary. The way you saw them was not ordinary. The way you encouraged them, forgave them, believed in them, and sensed what they could not explain was not something they could easily find again. They once assumed that kind of connection would always be available. They thought they could delay, withdraw, or return whenever they felt ready. But life has been teaching them that sacred things cannot be treated casually. There may have been a recent moment that awakened this truth more strongly than before. A conversation, a disappointment, a lonely evening, a dream, a place that reminded them of you, or a sudden realization that their future no longer felt complete. Something caused the walls around their heart to crack. And through that opening, your memory returned with force. They remembered something you said long ago. At the time, they may not have understood it. Perhaps you told them that one day they would recognize what they were losing. Perhaps you warned them that silence could create a distance love alone might not repair. Perhaps you simply asked for honesty, and they gave you confusion instead. Now those old words are echoing differently. The truth they once resisted has become impossible to ignore. They know they hurt you. They know they allowed fear to control choices that love should have guided. They know they left you questioning your worth when the real problem was their inability to face the depth of their own emotions. They may have made you feel as though you were asking for too much, when in reality you were asking for clarity, consistency, and truth. Their regret is not only about losing you. It is about realizing that they became the reason you had to learn how to live without them. That realization carries a different kind of pain. They may be asking themselves whether they deserve another chance. They may be watching from a distance, trying to understand whether you still carry any love for them. They may notice that your energy feels different now. Stronger. Calmer. Less willing to chase. And that change is drawing them closer while also making them afraid. Your silence now speaks in a way your pleading never could. It tells them that you survived. It tells them that your life continued. It tells them that although you may still care, you no longer need them to complete you. This is one of the reasons their return may feel more urgent than before. They sense that time is no longer waiting for them. They sense that your heart is not frozen in the place where they left it. They sense that someone else could one day receive the love they were too afraid to honor. But do not confuse their fear of losing you with proof that they are ready to build with you. This is the warning wrapped inside the blessing. Their return may be genuine, but it may also begin before their transformation is complete. They may come back while still carrying the habits that created separation. They may want forgiveness before they fully understand accountability. They may ask for trust before they have rebuilt it. Your role is not to finish their healing for them. You can listen without surrendering your boundaries. You can forgive without returning to the same pattern. You can love someone and still require them to show that they are capable of protecting what they once damaged. Heaven is not asking you to become cold. Heaven is teaching you how to remain warm without setting yourself on fire. There is another layer to this message, and it may be the part your heart was not expecting. Your soulmate may not return in the exact way you imagined. You may have pictured a dramatic confession, a sudden call, or a message filled with every word you waited to hear. But their first step may be smaller. They may test the waters with a simple question. They may respond to something you share. They may ask about your life as though the conversation is casual, while their heart is racing beneath every sentence. Do not underestimate a quiet beginning. Some people hide great emotion behind ordinary words because vulnerability still frightens them. A simple, "How have you been?" can carry months of regret. A small apology can be the doorway to a much larger truth. A familiar greeting can conceal a confession they are still gathering the courage to release. You may feel tempted to make it easy for them. You may want to fill the silence, reassure them, or show them immediately that the door is still open. But pause. Let them speak. Let them carry the weight of what they came to say. Do not rescue them from the discomfort that growth requires. They must learn to express what they once avoided. They must learn to stand in the truth without running. They must show that they can approach your heart with humility rather than entitlement. This is how you will know whether the return is different. A transformed person does not blame timing for every wound. They do not hide behind destiny to avoid responsibility. They do not say, "We were meant to be," while ignoring what they did to break the connection. Real change sounds like, "I understand how my actions affected you." Real change looks like patience. Real change accepts that trust may need time. Real change does not punish you for being careful. Stay until the end, because the final revelation of this message may change the way you see everything that happened. The separation was not only about loss. It was also about preparation. While you were grieving what could have been, you were becoming someone who could recognize the difference between love and emotional hunger. You were learning to stop calling inconsistency a spiritual test. You were learning that divine connections do not ask you to abandon your dignity. At the same time, your soulmate was being confronted with the consequences of their choices. The distance showed them what your presence had protected them from. Without your reassurance, they had to face their own doubts. Without your patience, they had to sit with the parts of themselves they kept avoiding. Without your love nearby, they began to see how often they had received something sacred without fully valuing it. Both of you were being changed, but not in the same way. You were learning not to chase. They were learning what happens when they keep running. And now those two lessons may be bringing your paths close again. But understand this, a reunion is not automatically a restoration. A door reopening does not mean you must immediately walk through it. Sometimes heaven brings a person back so you can begin again. Sometimes they return so you can receive the truth you were denied. Sometimes they return so you can finally see that you have outgrown what once controlled your heart. You will know by the peace within you. Not the excitement. Not the nostalgia. Not the fear of missing your chance. Peace. The right return will not require you to betray the wisdom you gained in the separation. It may challenge you, but it will not make you feel invisible. It may move slowly, but it will not keep you trapped in endless uncertainty. It may ask for forgiveness, but it will also respect the process of rebuilding. There is something your soulmate may soon confess that will explain why they stayed away longer than they intended. It was not only pride. It was not only fear. They were carrying a belief about themselves that made them think they would eventually disappoint you. A part of them felt unworthy of the love you offered. Instead of admitting that insecurity, they created distance. They convinced themselves that leaving first would protect them from being rejected later. But their attempt to avoid pain created the very loss they feared. This is why they may return with emotion that feels almost overwhelming. They are not only grieving the time apart. They are grieving the realization that you were willing to love them through what they were too afraid to reveal. Still, compassion must not become permission for the same behavior. You can understand their wounds without allowing those wounds to wound you again. You can acknowledge their fear without making it your responsibility to remove it. You can offer a new beginning only if they are willing to build it differently. Something huge is waiting beneath the surface of this return. It is more than a message. More than an apology. More than a sudden wave of longing. A decision is forming. Your soulmate may soon reach a point where silence becomes more painful than honesty. They may decide to reveal what they have hidden, not only about their feelings, but about the true reason the connection was interrupted. There may have been an influence you did not fully see. A fear they never explained. A conversation that changed their choices. A misunderstanding they allowed to grow because they were too uncertain to confront it. And now, they know that if they return, they cannot return with half-truths. This time, the hidden thing must be spoken. You may believe you already know why they left. You may have replayed the past so many times that every detail feels familiar. But there is one piece you were never given. One moment they concealed. One decision they made after hearing something that caused them to question the connection. It did not erase their feelings. It buried them beneath confusion. For a while, they trusted fear more than they trusted what they felt with you. They listened to doubt, outside opinions, or their own unresolved past. They allowed something unverified to shape the future of the connection. But recently, the truth began to come to light. They discovered that what influenced them may not have been what it seemed. And now they are not only regretting the distance. They are becoming deeply unsettled by the possibility that they walked away from you because of something that was never true. This is why their energy feels closer. This is why the past is stirring. This is why you were led to this message now. Your soulmate may be returning, but the first thing they bring may not be romance. It may be a confession. A confession about what they heard. A confession about who influenced them. A confession about the moment they chose fear over the connection. And when they finally reveal it, you may understand why their return has taken so long. But you may also realize that the truth they are carrying has the power to change everything between you. Because the person who placed doubt in their heart may still be closer to this story than you think. And your soulmate has just discovered something about that person they were never supposed to find out.